Welcome to our 5 on 5. Please be joined in studio by Oregon Governor Kate Brown. Governor, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
So you're in charge of how the state's going to reopen. Do you know what specific case numbers or vaccination numbers that you need to see before we can see the entire state reopen?
Look, I know this pandemic has been very challenging. My role as governor is to make sure that people are safe and healthy. And there are a number of factors that I'm going to consider as we begin the reopening process. Number one, need to see a significant majority of Oregonians vaccinated, and that includes all of our populations, including our communities of color, and specifically our Latino community that's been particularly hard hit by the pandemic. Secondly, we want to make sure that vaccines are readily accessible in every single community around the state. The other factor that I will be looking at is hospital bed capacity and healthcare staff. Want to make sure that we have adequate healthcare and hospital bed capacity to take care of our vulnerable Oregonians. I know that we're all anxious for this reopening process to begin. I'm hoping that we can certainly move toward reopening by the end of June.
A lot of people are unhappy that 15 of the state's 36 counties are going to extreme tomorrow. Many, particularly in the struggling restaurant industry, feel their livelihood is at stake. And we're already hearing today that some are preparing to close. What's your message to these people?
Look, this is really, really hard and extremely financially challenging for our small businesses. My goal is to get $20 million out the door as quickly as possible to help our small businesses in these 15 counties. But Oregonians can also step up and help their small businesses as well. Restaurants can still offer takeout. We want to make sure that small businesses that have an online capacity, that Oregonians continue to shop through the internet. So there are a number of ways that we can all support our small businesses. But here's the challenge. The virus is widespread throughout our community, and we need to take community-wide measures, safety protocol, to ensure that we can keep people safe and reduce the transmission of the virus.
We spoke to state reps, one on each side of the aisle last night. They told us they haven't seen anything beyond your message about the $20 million that is going to be available potentially through the legislature. Is there any kind of timeline on when that could be done? You said as soon as possible, but is there any estimate you can give us?
My goal is to get these resources out the door by the end of the week.
Okay. And then do you have a definition for small businesses? Under 100, under 50? What does that look like to you?
No, I think we specifically want to focus on those businesses in the 15 counties that have been impacted by the safety protocol that the pandemic has forced upon us.
Okay, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll have much more with the governor in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back to our 5 on 5. We're going to hear with Oregon Governor Kate Brown in studio. Governor, no Oregon governor has gone through a pandemic like this one. Have you received any threats?
Look, I am very confident that my security detail can keep me safe. My focus as the Oregon governor is to protect the lives and the health of Oregonians across the state. And one of the best things that Oregonians can do right now is to get vaccinated. The quicker we can get more people vaccinated, that's absolutely the key to reopening, and that's my focus.
I was just going to ask you about vaccinations. Obviously, you, doctors at the local and state level, are all promoting vaccinations and the low risk. Many people say they're not going to do it. We are seeing vaccination clinics virtually begging people to show up right now. What is your message to these people?
Look, it's very, very clear. The health, the science, and the data are very, very clear. The best thing that you can do to protect yourself is to get a vaccine. The best thing you can do to protect your family members is to get a vaccine. And that's true with your vulnerable community members as well. And in addition, the vaccines will help prevent hospitalizations and help prevent deaths. And if you have any questions or concerns, you should talk to your local health provider. They can provide you with the best information. The good news is that there are a number of partners in Jackson County that have stepped up to make sure that these vaccines are readily available for the Oregonians that want them.
I do have to ask you some questions not about COVID. Curry County Commissioners voted this week to officially let the state take over the county's health department. It has only one person, the administrator, on staff. What are your goals for Curry County?
Well, it's not unusual that we step in to assist counties around the state with local public health. And we appreciate their effort to request both resources and boots on the ground. My goal is to make sure that Curry County has the staff they need to support their local public health measures, and that they have the resources they need to provide safety measures for their community members.
In the Klamath Basin and the Klamath Project, farmers and ranchers will essentially have no water at all this year for irrigation, and they and their communities are going to suffer. What will the state do to help those farm communities survive and bounce back?
This is an incredibly challenging year for Oregon in terms of drought. My commitment to Southern Oregon and the Klamath Basin is to work with our federal partners to make sure we get additional resources, additional financial resources on the ground to help the farmers and ranchers there. But we're all going to have to work together in these challenging times.
Outside of Portland, we hear every assessment on the spectrum about the city, from the downtown is boarded up into dead zone to it's just a handful of criminals causing isolated trouble. Everything's okay. Where do you fall on that spectrum?
So I have to say this, there is certainly a group of violent activists in the city bent on property destruction and arson. Their behavior is absolutely unacceptable, and they must be held accountable. But Portland is a very vibrant and resilient city. There are also a number of peaceful protests happening around the city, folks asking for a long overdue call for racial justice in this state and in this country. And of course, these conversations are happening in communities around the state. It will rebuild, it will recover, and it's very, very tough.
You're a Portlander. Is your hometown in better or worse shape than when you took office?
So that's a really good question. I think we're in the midst of a very important reckoning around racial justice. And I think this conversation is long overdue. And I think it's critically important that moving forward, we all work together to build a better Oregon. And in the legislature, in the Capitol right now, I'm really focused on making sure that our communities have the resources and the tools to recover from the pandemic, but also that we center the voices of Black and Brown Oregonians in that work, and we make sure that their voices are directing our recovery and rebuilding efforts.
I know how busy you are today. I want to say thank you so much for taking the time and joining us for this extended interview.
Thank you so much for having me.
We'll be right back.